I've had another opinion to get rid of, and they're smart as hell.
Oh, yeah.
I never believed there was actually a thing as a pack rat. You know, you hear about that, but then when you have a rat that moves old car coils and stuff that I had in my barn, oh yeah, he moved them all over to his spot, man. Chewed the wires off the coils, but he liked them. He moved a gear that must have weighed 10 pounds. He's like, how did this little guy move this?
Well, and you know those big nests that they build, they have like rooms in them.
Oh yeah.
You know, and they have one room that's where they keep all their treasure, and
He was piling his up on the outside.
I had a neighbor when I was living here in Lawrence who moved out to the country, and his tools were disappearing, sockets and stuff.
Oh yeah, gun spray.
He found them one day in a pack rat nest.
Yeah.
yeah, we had out at the Boy Scout camp. We had not too far from the shelter where a lot of people hang out when the weather's not very good. We'd have, you know, when I camped out there, if I wasn't with the unit, I'd always just put a tent up underneath the shelter. It was just a roof, and I'd just throw a sleeping bag on a cot. And, you know, I wouldn't worry about tenting or anything like that. But I always just assumed it was like a raccoon or something coming by, and you'd hear them jingling, you know, pots and pans or silverware or something like that. And then there was a big cottonwood tree back in the woods, and somebody discovered on the backside of the cottonwood tree that we never saw, there was a big pack rat nest up against the trunk, and they found all these camping, you know, like cooking pots and forks and spoons and water bottles, and yeah, it just had a whole collection. He could outfit a whole troop. So
They are something else, aren't they?
yeah. So, all right. Well, before we actually get started, I had a little quick announcement to make. It's not good news, but it could have been a lot worse news. Bill Winkler, who's been a longtime member of the club, I've been speaking with his sister for the last couple of weeks, had a major medical emergency that required immediate emergency surgery. And it was pretty serious, and the fact that he's 83 on top of it didn't make it any better. He had some intestinal and bowel blockage that they had to remove, and then they found numerous other leaks in his intestine while they were in there. So it was pretty serious. He made it through the surgery, but he's real weak, and he's going to be in long-term rehab for a while.
My dad went through that.
Yeah, that's
I
what
know
killed
that.
my mother. So
He's probably sending up next to the speedway. There's a place
no,
up
they're
there.
not sending him anywhere because his sister was actually going to take him with her to Pennsylvania, so close to where she lived, and the people at the hospital said he can't travel. He's not strong enough to travel at this point. So, but if anybody wants to go see him, he is available for visits now. He's at that, our Pioneer Ridge, the retirement community is right there on Wakarusa, like at, what is that? I can't think of it's not a numbered street, just about 9th and Wakarusa-ish on the east side of Wakarusa. Just behind that is Pioneer Health and Rehabilitation, which is the second. That's where Bill is.
William's aunt was in there for several months.
Oh, okay. Well, then
Yeah, I know.
you know all about that. So
Yep.
anyway, I just wanted to let everybody know. She apparently has already sold his house because the intent is, if and when he's strong enough to travel, they are still hoping to take him back to Pennsylvania so that'd be closer to her. The take care of them. So anyway, I just told her I would let everybody know, and I went over and helped them clean up some stuff in the house, and she said if there was any telescope stuff that was usable that I could have it. Well, when I got there, all of his telescopes were out in the backyard, uncovered. His Schmidt Cassegrain, the cast aluminum frame inside the single arm was broken, and the aluminum was broken in 4 places, and it had rat's nests, and he had a refractor that looked like it was a squirrel den because it was filled with walnuts and peanut shells and acorns. And
That's not something that happens overnight.
no, and if you'd have seen the house, you'd understand. He had gotten to the point apparently where he was just unable to take care of himself anymore. So
Unfortunately, I have seen those houses. It's pretty sad.
yeah, it was pretty sad. We definitely wore gloves and a mask when we were in there working. So anyway, I just wanted to give everybody an update on what I know so far. If I hear any updates from his sister, she's already back in Pennsylvania, but if I hear anything else, I'll let everybody know. But I guess it could have been worse news. No.
On that cheerful note.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We'll go wash across the bean here in just a minute.
Yeah, so.
Yes, I came with
Yeah, my neighbor out at St. Mary's, she passed away in July, and her kids have been cleaning out the house.
So you're by St. Mary's?
Right in,
Right in the middle of it.
yeah,
Well, that's where Geraldine lives.
Yes,
who's Gerald?
She's
Geraldine.
technically a member of the club, right?
she's a member of our club. She's a former president of the Wichita Club,
Right.
but she lives in St. Mary's.
Oh,
Geraldine Ramirez. I'll send you her contact information.
Alright.
She does events in St. Mary's and some of the small towns.
That woman does more outreach than anyone I know.
Yep.
yeah,
It's unbelievable.
My neighbors,
The night, the 20th, that was the morning, but the 19th
Mm-hmm.
was the Saturn transit. So we were texting back and forth, and she had managed to catch it, not the Titan transit on
Saturn, right?
Yeah. And she had to quit about 1, and I was about ready to give up because it was cloudy here. I don't know if any of you guys tried. Well, I was blessed by the goddess of the night sky because a sucker hole like you wouldn't believe opened up in the south, and I watched it for 20 minutes. It was really pretty cool.
Yeah.
we gotta
Be
wait.
15 years now.
Before I can do any observing, I gotta wait for all the construction materials to clear out of my garage. So I can at least set the telescope in there so I can get it out onto the driveway.
So I take it all of you missed that. Did anybody get a chance to see any of the Saturn transits?
Nope.
I didn't see it.
I haven't been observing
Here,
since last year.
almost every night was cloudy here. I mean, I tried every event, and I swear to God, it'd be clear as a bell until midnight, and it would freaking cloud up. I was just like, this is unbelievable.
It's kind of the way it works sometimes.
Yeah. But that many in a row?
I have been decorating my new house with antique prints. The living room, there are 2 parts to the living room. I'm filling the walls with 17th and 18th century prints.
Did he get lost in there?
I don't know. If you fell
I saw him turn the corner.
Maybe he fell asleep.
Give him a call.
I know he's here because he brought me.
We're not in
Well,
a
right, we
race.
saw him go in the restroom, but
Well, I figured he must have been here. I didn't see him go in the restroom, but I saw you, and
and
I didn't figure that you walked
and until they get self-driving cars.
I've got some new prints that none of you have seen.
Well, you posted a couple.
Yeah, I
Are
posted
those-
a couple. I've got
yeah.
a couple of, got two prints from Johannes Velius, the Polish astronomer, from his star atlas. I acquired two first edition prints of Johannes Bayer, 1603 edition. I've got one of those up hanging in the living room.
Well, next time I'm in town, if there isn't any major construction going on at your
There
house,
you go.
I'll,
You're getting ready to make a phone call, see if you're okay.
You got it? No,
No, I don't. But I assume Rick does.
all right, so David Kolb.
What you did the introduction.
Well, David's been a long time member of AAL, and he actually did this presentation for a few of us during COVID on a Zoom meeting, I believe.
Yeah, it was 2020.
Yep.
Wasn't that last year?
It seems like it, doesn't it?
But anyway, he had just done this again for the Topeka group not too long ago.
Not this one.
Oh, not this one?
I did a talk. What was it? What did I do for them?
I know you did the spectroheliograph.
Oh, the spectroheliograph
Yeah.
talk.
I thought you'd done this one too. But anyway, I asked him if he had anything good, and he said, no, just the one that we'd done before. And I said, well, there weren't that many people on that call, so of course
I actually did update this a little bit.
we have Chiefs game that was the second game in the afternoon, so I wasn't expecting a huge crowd tonight either. But anyway, take it away, Dave.
Okay, this year is the 100th anniversary of Cecilia Payne's discovery of the composition of the stars. And as Rick said, I gave this talk 5 years ago. I have made a few corrections, a few additions, so it's a few new things I've added to the talk. And Cecilia Paynes was born in Wendover, England on May 10th, 1900, to middle-class parents Emma and Edward Payne. Her early education consisted of attending a private school run by a woman by the name of Elizabeth Edwards, where she learned French and Latin languages. Later in life, she learned also German and Italian. While she was attending the private school, she had a very strong aptitude for algebra and geometry. And she also developed a passion for botany. Later, when she was 12, her family moved to London so her brother Humphrey could receive a better education. And they enrolled Cecilia in St. Mary's Catholic School, where the curriculum was very lacking. Basically did not have any science education, pretty much. Just a little bit of math. While she was there, she was always carrying away the top prizes, but she was never happy and not compliant as the other girls. Now, she did get some private tutoring in mathematics while she was there, since they didn't really provide a solid education in curriculum in mathematics and science. The only way she could get any math was through private tutoring. Well, this St. Mary's Catholic School had no idea how to handle her. They had never dealt with a high-achieving, uncooperative child before, so they expelled her. And after she was expelled, her mother enrolled her into St. Paul's Girls' School. Now, as Cecilia was growing up, her mother was raising she and her brother by herself because her father died when she was 4 years old. So her mother had her hands full. Now, St. Paul's School, girls' school, provided a pretty strong science curriculum, biology, chemistry, and physics. She became a member of the orchestra and learned to conduct under Gustav Holst. Holst was a member of the faculty at St. Paul's. In 1 year, she caught up on chemistry, Newtonian dynamics, thermodynamics, electricity and magnetism, and basic astronomy. And physics replaced her love of botany. And after 1 year at St. Paul's Girls' School, she went on to Cambridge, where she enrolled into Newnham College, the Cambridge's College for Women, in 1919. While she was there, she studied in the Cavendish Laboratory under Charles Cyril, Niels Bohr, and Ernest Rutherford. I couldn't imagine a better education than that. She was studying under the top people of the time. Now, the Cavendish Laboratory was a very sexist environment. And just to give you an idea, I want to read a little excerpt from a foreword in the What Stars Are Made Of, the biography of Cecilia Payne. A foreword by Jocelyn Bell. When Jocelyn Bell describes how her the sexism that she encountered at the University of Glasgow. So let me read this here. When I was an undergraduate at the University of Glasgow in the 1960s, everyone had assigned seats in the lecture theater to aid in taking attendance. Inevitably, the women were placed in the front row. When we entered the theater, we were often greeted by whistles, catcalls, the thumping of desks, and the stamping of feet by the male students. 40 years earlier, in Ernest Rutherford's classes at the University of Cambridge, Cecilia Payne also sat in the front row, and she faced similar attention. The difference was that in my day, lecturers did not normally encourage this behavior the way Rutherford did. That indicates some progress, I suppose. So she was dealing with a lot of sexism while she was there at Cambridge. Now, while she was at Cambridge, her love of science became astronomy after attending a lecture by Sir Arthur Eddington discussing the confirmation of Einstein's general theory of relativity using the shift of stellar positions during the 1919 solar eclipse. Well, so after when she turned her attention to astronomy, she started working in the Cambridge Observatory, studying under Sir Arthur Eddington, W.M. Smart, and E.A. Milne. Well, there she learned about relativity, celestial mechanics, reducing observations, and the chemical compositions of stars. Eddington and other astronomers at this time believed that stars were uniform in their composition and had the same composition as the Earth. They basically believed that at the time, around 1900, the planetesimal hypothesis of Chamberlain and Moulton came into vogue, where they said that a passing star pulled material out of the sun, which then condensed to form the planets. So they believed that the Earth and the sun had the same exact composition. Now, when they look at stars, they realize that the spectra weren't the same. They assumed that this was due to differences in temperature, but the mechanism of that difference was not well understood at the time.
Because it was wrong.
Well, it is temperature, but it's also
Yeah.
something else. Now, when she completed her studies at Newnham College, her options were pretty limited. Basically, graduates from Newnham College could only become school teachers. They were not granted given actual degrees. Now, while she was at the Cambridge Observatory, she attended a lecture by Harlow Shapley, and was thus inspired to go to America, to work under him. That was basically the only option she had at the time, was to leave England. Now, about the same time, in 1920, an Indian astronomer by the name of Saha developed a theory using quantum and statistical mechanics that explained the appearance of stellar spectra in terms of temperature and pressure of the stellar atmosphere. And this is when I was in grad school, where we learned the Saha equation and all that. Now, Mel encouraged Cecilia to test Saha's theory using the Harvard Observatory's stellar spectral library. To verify that the uniformity of these composition stars, if that was true or not. Verify that. And so when she arrived at Harvard, she began the daunting task using their collection of stellar spectra. And as we all know, the Harvard computers, the women assigned the task of classifying spectra, had classified the spectra according to the OB-AFGKM nomenclature that we know today. And Cecilia launched into this analysis. And one of the problems that she had, her background in physics hadn't prepared her for spectroscopy. She really didn't know anything about spectroscopy. And she spent 2 years trying to make sense of these stellar spectra. Well, she applied her training and in quantum mechanics and Saha theory, and made a breakthrough with the element silicon. She was able to figure out the figure the element of silicon. And from there, she was then able to nail down other elements. And what she ended up showing was that the composition of stars are fairly uniform, except with the exception of hydrogen and helium. Hydrogen and helium turned out to be far more abundant than hydrogen and helium on the Earth. This is the Saha equation. It relates the n sub I plus 1 or the n sub I. That's the ratio of electrons in different orbitals of the Bohr model. And it's dependent on the electron density, the n sub e, and the temperature. And this is this graph right here shows the line strength across different spectral types. So O-type stars are real hot, and say like hydrogen, it's very weak in the O-type stars, gets very strong in the A-type stars, and declines, becomes very weak in the GKM and type stars. Things like calcium aren't present in the hot stars, but are present in the cooler stars. And what she was basically doing with the Saha equation was having to nail down the ends of these curves, try to determine these ratios where the curves appear and disappear. And here's a chart from her book, the theoretical curves and the observed curves. And so she found that the abundances of helium, hydrogen is about 1 million times more abundant than the heavier elements, and helium is about 1,000 times more abundant. And she basically showed that her results were in direct conflict with the assumption that the Earth and the Sun had the same composition. And in her thesis, her thesis was published in 1925 under the title Stellar Atmospheres, and she was also the first PhD, she received the first PhD in astronomy from Harvard. And there were 650 copies of her thesis published. Henry Norris Russell, considered the Dean of American Astronomy, reviewed her thesis and insisted that her results were wrong. The results for hydrogen and helium had to be incorrect. And he forced her to, in order for her to publish her thesis, pass her thesis, she had to put in a little statement that the outstanding discrepancies between the astrophysical and terrestrial abundances are displayed for hydrogen and helium. The enormous abundance derived for these elements in the stellar atmosphere is almost certainly not real. So Henry Norris Russell had her put that little statement into her thesis. Well, Henry Norris Russell eventually came around. In a 1929 paper, he concluded that Cecilia's findings on the abundance of hydrogen and helium were actually correct after he came up with the same results using an independent method. However, because of his prominence in the astronomical community, he was given credit for the discovery.
What was his method?
What's that?
What was his method in your time?
I think he was observing analyzing the hydrogen and helium lines during, I think it was the flash spectra from solar eclipses. I think that's what he was observing. I have to go back. I'd have to refresh my memory on that, but it was an independent method that he used. Here's the title page from her thesis that's in my library.
Professor Storrs.
What's that?
Professor Storrs.
Yep, he was
Wow.
Clyde Tombaugh's advisor.
Yep.
He was the chairman of the physics department here back at that time. I figured that he probably purchased a copy of the thesis at an AAS meeting and had Cecilia sign it. Maybe she was probably at the same meeting, had her sign it, and there's her signature. I know of one other copy with her signature, and that was owned by Owen Gingrich, her last PhD student. Oh, and I've mentioned this to most people here before, but my copy of her thesis was used in the filming of episode 8 of the 2014 Cosmos series. I scanned a bunch of the cover and a bunch of pages for them, and they took the scans and used it from in that episode. Now, Otto Struve, 1962, famous Russian-born astronomer, spectroscopist, called her thesis the most brilliant PhD thesis ever written in astronomy. after receiving her degree, she continued working at Harvard without a title. And Harvard President Lawrence Lowell, that is Percival Lowell's brother, said, Miss Payne should never have a position in the university while I am alive.
Gee.
What?
Pretty sexist. Now, while she was working under Harlow Shapley was deflecting a lot of career opportunities.
When was that stated?
In the
This-
20s?
What's the date of that
20s.
statement?
That would have been in the 1930s.
That's pretty typical. I don't know that, were there even, it's because there were so few women in science at that point.
Yeah,
I mean, they were actively discouraged from.
yeah. Well, even up into the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, a lot of just women were just not
Well, there
encouraged.
was Murray Curie was around then.
Now, in 1934, she married Sergei Kopchkin, a Russian astronomer. The history of their meeting was kind of interesting. He was wasn't an astronomer when he left Russia. He left Russia when the ship he was on in the Black Sea got blown off course during the storm, landed in a Turkish port, and he could not return because Stalin would have put them in the gulag immediately upon return. You couldn't leave Russia and come back. If you did, you were hauled off to the gulag. Well, she met him when she was in Europe, and they fell in love, and Cecilia convinced Harlow Shapley to sponsor him. And he was not as good of an astronomer as Cecilia. He always kind of lurked in her shadow. And I think it kind of caused a little bit of friction. But now, also in 1934, she was the first recipient of the Andy J. Cannon Prize from the American Astronomical Society. And she also specialized in studying variable stars. Now, after Shapley's retirement, his replacement, Donald Menzel, doubled Cecilia's salary. Later years, in 1956, she was the first woman to be promoted to full professorship at Harvard, followed by the first woman to chair a department, that is the astronomy department, a few months later. 1961, she received the Rittenhouse Medal from the Franklin Institute. How many people are familiar with David Rittenhouse?
I've heard.
He was an early American 18th century astronomer and clockmaker.
Yeah.
And he built a rather famous Ori that now still exists at Yale University. The Rittenhouse Ori is, look that up, it's quite an amazing piece of work.
It's at Yale.
Yeah, it's at Yale. 1962 was her last PhD student was Owen Gingrich. Owen Gingrich is now deceased. He died a couple years ago.
He was the astronomer.
Yeah, he was an astronomer, and he specialized in the history of astronomy.
Is it related to Newt Gingrich?
What's that?
Is it related to Newt Gingrich?
Unlike
Newt Gingrich.
No.
Yeah,
Owen
fantastic
Gingrich, when he
collection
passed
of
away
books, too.
recently, his library was quite awesome. He owned-
Fantastic collection.
Yeah, he had a fantastic collection. He had a second edition of Copernicus's De Revolutionibus and other very rare books. A lot of those books wound up in being sold off at Christie's, but a lot of the library in his office actually went out to the dumpster.
Linda Hall would have bought some.
I don't know. I don't know, somebody may have rescued some of that stuff, but they said there was what the auction houses weren't interested in was going to the dumpster. In 76, she was the first woman to receive the Henry Norris Prize from the American Astronomical Society. 79, she passed away after a battle with lung cancer. Now, Cecilia was legendary chain smoker. She would start the next cigarette from the butt of the previous cigarette. That's how bad of a smoker she was. And Steve Shaw can attest to that. When he met Cecilia at Lick Observatory many years ago, when he was there, and she was also there, he can attest to that, her constant smoking. Now, more recently, other books by Cecilia Payne, Stars of High Luminosity, Variable Stars, and Galactic Structure. She did an introduction to astronomy, a little textbook, and the Galactic Novae. More recent acknowledgments. In 2008, the Institute of Physics, that's the UK equivalent to the American Physical Society, named the Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin Medal and Prize in her honor. In 2014, she's, as I just mentioned, she was featured. Her history was featured in an episode of episode 8 of the Cosmos series that aired on Fox Television, which I gave them a little help with. 2018, the American Physical Society's Doctoral Dissertation Award in Astrophysics was renamed the Cecilia Payne-Gaposchkin Doctoral Dissertation Award. She's also the namesake of one of the automated survey. It's an automated survey for supernova telescopes deployed in South Africa. Oh, I can't remember what that acronym stands for. It's something automated.
Synoptic? Is that synoptic?
No, the automated survey.
Is it just the automated South African survey for supernova?
I don't know. And she's also the namesake of one of the volcanoes on Venus. Now, if you go out on the web and do a search for Cecilia Payne, you'll find a lot of websites.
I'm sorry, it's funny to have a volcano named after a chain smoker.
Yeah, that's good. I've never thought of that. But you'll find a lot of people talking about Cecilia Payne on the web these days. So she's starting to get the acknowledgement that she deserves 50 years after her death. Is that the end? References. Any questions? Oh, that was really short.
Cool.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to take the whole time. These
So
are a couple of books that I used.
A lot of the
References?
computers at Harvard ended up being,
What's that?
I said a lot of the women that were computers at Harvard ended up being pretty famous in their own
Oh, yeah.
right, even though they were almost universally ignored for the work they were doing at the time.
Before Harlow Shapley took the lead at Harvard, his predecessor Pickering, the women there were often referred to as Pickering's harem.
I'm sure they appreciated that.
Yeah. This is a couple of the references I pulled from quite a bit. The Cecilia Payne's autobiography, edited by her daughter, and the more recent Donovan Moore book, What Stars Are Made Of. This is a fairly it was like 2014, 2015. No, this is 2020. Published in 2020. And this was published in, her autobiography was published in 1984 after her death. So it was incomplete when she died, finished up by her daughter. Any questions?
There was a book that I read about solar eclipses. It was like the history of, scientific efforts for American solar eclipses. That had a nice little section in it. I just can't think of the name of the book off the top of my head now, about Cecilia and her husband.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I guess she went on the one that went through Wyoming and Colorado back in the early 1900s, where everybody went to that one because that was at the time the Great American eclipse, and Thomas Edison went, and everybody was out there doing something. But a lot of the women from a couple of the women's colleges went to the area around Denver, but it gave some background information about some of the women, including her.
Now, she doesn't, I don't think she ever mentioned that in her book.
Well, that's a gross oversight, she didn't.
No.
As Rick said,
Cecilia
that's a big deal
Payne
back in the
did
day.
not keep a lot of records. When she died, about all that they had, all she had left behind in terms of records, correspondences, could fill one box. She basically she didn't keep anything, hardly. Whereas Harlow Shapley, he's got several aisles, several rows of bookshelves, just archival shelves, just filled with boxes. He kept everything. And that's why I know that her thesis had only 650 copies printed, because he mentioned that in one of his letters, correspondences, that's in his archive, that they only printed 650 copies. But Cecilia, no, she didn't keep anything. One box, that's it.
I guess if you're used to moving around, that's the way it goes.
Well, she was at Harvard pretty much her whole career. She just, well, I'm done with this. Run file.
Kind of like her used up cigarettes.
Yeah.
I'm done with it. Trash.
Like if she made almost daily chain smoking, that's commendable in itself.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's genetics.
Yeah, it's amazing she made it to 79.
Yeah.
Now, I remember when I was an undergrad, my professor I had at the time during class mentioned her passing, and that was the first time I had heard of her. And it was years later, in '86, that I encountered her her thesis in John Hood, the bookshop.
Oh, down on Mass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
An actual copy?
Yeah, it was it was out of Starr's library. In fact, John Hood had pretty much all of Starr's library
He
for
had,
sale in his
he had a
shop.
great collection of astronomy books for sale in that
Yeah, and they
store.
were all Starr's.
I didn't realize that.
They were all Starr's books.
Whose book star?
Starr, he was the department chairman for all during the 30s, 40s.
At KU?
Okay, Peter Kennedy, yeah. He was Clyde
So
Tombauer's.
did you buy it or not?
I bought it.
You bought it, good, okay.
That's what it's in my library. He was Clyde Tombauer's undergraduate advisor.
This star.
Storm, yeah.
When did he die?
Who?
Stores.
I don't know.
Before the hood. That hood has been gone for 20 years.
70s maybe?
I remember that.
60s,
store.
70s.
John Hood is still around.
Okay. The store,
He's-
the bookstore on,
It's not a
No,
bookstore.
bookstore is not
He's
gone.
got his own private, he's running his business out of Baldwin now.
online.
Yeah.
Much bigger than it was before.
Have you heard of the Slid Antiquarium in Columbia? That's another one.
I've
They get
heard of
it.
him.
Yeah, they sell.
I tried buying something from him one time, but he
Didn't want to sell it.
he sold it to somebody else. He said,
Well, they-
sorry, I don't have this anymore.
They have a storefront, but I think they do most of the stuff online.
Yeah, yeah.
I went down there once. They do all topics, but they do have a lot of science.
Mhm. He tends to be about average on his prices, or a little higher.
I thought the prices at J Hood were very reasonable.
Oh yeah, they're very reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've heard. The most expensive book was like 5,000 I saw, so they're not. It's not like Christie's. I mean, they're Slid
Mhm.
If you ever want to look at what the highest price anybody ever paid for anything was, all you have to do is look at Christie's, post auction
Yeah.
pricing, because
Anything touched by Da Vinci or Galileo.
there's those
Well,
rudimentary.
Depends on what edition you get. I've got a second edition of Galileo's sunspot observations,
So late 1600s.
1655.
Okay. Cool. I'm surprised so many books survived. I guess they had enough.
Remember when some of those old Tomball telescopes that he had built himself?
Yeah, they came up for sale through Heritage Auctions in
Did
Texas.
you see how high those ended up?
Yeah.
I put a bid on one of them at the beginning, and then I went back and checked it, and I went, okay, I'm out.
But his most famous was it 9-inch? Was it a 9-inch reflector that he made?
Yes,
That went to the Lowell Observatory.
it went to
bought-
the observatory.
they
Oh,
bought
yeah,
that.
museum. They just built a new building here. I was there like a year ago, and they were just finishing it up. It's like a science center, and
I have something in my library that needs to go there. I have something
they want.
that they will want. It's a book that belonged to Percival Lowell, given to Percival when he was 17 years old by his mother. Book on Saturn with little footnotes written by.
Give it to him when you pass.
I will give that to him before that. I'll make a trip down. It's going to be a trip down there and say, I think you want this.
Well, we still have a former KU grad student who's working down there now, doing
Was that
his
slide
post.
scanning thing? Or I mean, the old,
Yeah, the one that was scanning the old glass plates. He's working down there now. So if you go down there in the next few years while he's still working there, I'm sure you could get a even better tour.
Yeah, probably could. Yeah, I plan to give that book. I had to. I don't know if I should have had it restored. The book was falling apart. The spine had fallen off it. The hinges were cracked, and I paid a professional book restorer to restore it, so you could at least handle it.
Oh yeah.
It was to the point where you couldn't handle it
Well, you
anymore.
just put in glass.
You can actually now pick it up, open it, and not worry about it,
Cracking the front.
about pieces of it falling off.
Is that the acid paper? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it'd be acid paper, but the binding was in terrible condition.
I think for hardcore collectors, they probably wouldn't have wanted you to do that,
Probably not.
but the observatory,
Yeah.
so that they can actually
show it.
display it and
Mhm.
somebody can look at it and touch it and
And
do
the
that.
fact that it has the note from his mother
Right.
to him. It was a Christmas gift from his mother when he was 17 years old. they have one other Christmas present from his